Well, hi there. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are 66 Degrees, your certified Google Premier partner. Today's topic revolves around something near and dear to my and our collective hearts here at 66 Degrees. Change management when moving to Google Workspace. We'll be focusing on a few key areas, such as the psychology around change management, the methodologies surrounding it, as well as how you might be able to successfully deliver a change management program. We're also joined by a couple of fabulous people. I'm very excited to have them on the call today. And we'll be making our introductions here in just 1 second. But we do have Tatiana Griffin, our change management lead here at 66 Degrees, and Gretchen Reyes, who is a Google Workspace consultant at Google Cloud. Very, very excited to have you here today. And hi, I'm Dan. I'm a senior customer engineer here at 66 Degrees, and I've been here for quite some time, but I'm not going to talk about myself because I want to dive right into everything. And I want to introduce our first panelist, and that's Tatiana Griffin. Hi, Tatiana.
Hey, Dan. Glad to be here today. Again, my name is Tatiana Griffin. I'm the change management lead here at 66 Degrees. I joined the company last year, but I've been living in the land of Google for over a decade as a trainer, consultant, IT administrator, so both a wizard behind the scenes and a sage on the stage. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Gretchen. How are you?
I'm good. Dan, how are you?
Doing well. Very excited to have you today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself for the people that don't know?
Yeah, as Dan mentioned, I'm a Google Workspace consultant. I actually have been with the Workspace team for a little over 2.5 years here at Google, and I focus specifically on change management and helping our customers as they transition off of legacy systems over to Google Workspace. So really excited to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
Awesome. Great. Really excited to again, I keep saying that, really excited. I am. I just love doing these two and this, especially with change management. We know that a lot of organizations, they know about it, but they don't really understand it, or they're either fearful of the change management from the change. So I think, having both of you on is going to be really a fascinating and outstanding conversation. But I was thinking maybe we could start to talk about the psychology of it all, right? I mean, there's so much to be learned from, and there's been tons of studies regarding that, right?
Yes, definitely. So I think before we dive into the kind of specifics of change management when it comes to Google Workspace and moving towards it, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the models that are out there that are part of the research that has inspired the work that we do when we support customers. So as you can see here, these are kind of 5 of the most well-known models that are a part of the change management field. On the left here, you can see Kotter's change management theory, or Kotter's model. It's one of the most popular and adopted ones in the world. And it has 8 stages, and each of them focuses on employees' responses to change. The next one over is the ACTAR model, and that's an acronym. This can be used by change managers to find out gaps in the process so that effective training can be offered to employees. The
It's a
center
trap.
one, which we'll
I'm
dive in.
sorry. I'm sorry. I couldn't resist. Admiral Akbar.
Sure.
I don't know everybody. I was just like, it's a trap. Akbar. Sorry. Go on.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Okay.
No worries. Totally. We're doing some memory association here. All welcome. So Kubler-Ross, which we'll dive into here in a little bit, this model is a little different from the others in that it's all about the employees. This model can also be applied to other life situations, maybe when you've lost your job, changes in work, maybe like when you're going through some sort of a transition, something that's going to change the status quo in your life. And this model helps employers understand their employees better and build empathy with them. And that's really important. This consists of 5 stages that employees may be going through. And it's aligned with, again, the science of change and the art of managing it. We have 2 more here. Lewin's change management model is one of the most popular, accepted and effective change management models. This helps companies better understand organizational and structured change, and it consists of 3 main stages, which are unfreeze, change, and refreeze. We have one more McKinsey 7S framework or model is one of the longest lasting change management models. It's got 7 crucial categories and companies kind of are looking at when implementing change. With all that being said, these are models that have inspired the work that we do. So just wanted to lay that foundation before we look at a little bit of the psychology of change and some of the things that are involved there.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's really fascinating. I know we prepped for this a little bit. Obviously, we have a slide deck here, but I never knew the amount of these different models and different theories and looking at methods and frameworks, as you mentioned. I just really found it fascinating. I think what we're going into next is more focused on the psychology of change, right? Like as you just mentioned, but focusing on more the Kubler-Ross change curve, right?
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, so what you can see here is kind of more of an evolved model beyond those first 5 phases. And really, what we're thinking about here is the behaviors and the attitudes that team members may experience or be experiencing as they're going through change, right? In general, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of trepidation. Some people kind of ride the wave and go for it, but a lot of people have a lot of emotions and kind of, consternations about moving forward. And it's important to acknowledge that, to look at the people portion and
Yeah.
how they react to change and some ways that some people might resist it more than others and how we can support people in that. So you can see here, right, that going from those 5 stages, we have shock, denial, frustration, depression, experimenting, decision, and integration. And so we're really keeping this in mind as we do all the technical wizardry of kind of getting folks migrated over to Google Workspace.
Fascinating. Yeah, I think this does speak to me quite a bit in the sense of going through, I've been here for some time, and seeing how different organizations approach each of these stages too, right? And the sooner you get ahead of it, I think the sooner you have a better understanding and the more successful that change effort is going to be, right?
For sure. Um, Now, this one has a lot of kind of science in it here, but as we're talking about the psychology of change, I think it's important to also acknowledge the biology or the bio kind of chemistry of change, the things that are just kind of hardwired into our brains. And it's even, the way that our habits and our behaviors are imprinted into our biology, while the psychology is another layer. So, when we just do a little overview here, when we're looking at the feeling of being excluded, for example, that might trigger a response in one part of the brain that deals with physical pain. Then maybe realizing something we've been told is unrealistic or we're kind of dispelling a belief system. The prefrontal cortex goes into high alert. And this is where we start to get a little bit of anxiety. So we start kind of like having a little bit of that kind of biochemical reaction to something. When we have the opportunity to solve our own problems and we're empowered to do so, as an adult learning theory is, part of what we do, there's adrenaline. So that's kind of starting to move into the positive aspects of some of that. And then since we can only handle a few concepts at a time, that's cognitive science. We don't want to overwhelm people. So we want to make sure that as those feelings of anxiety and fear reemerge, that we're giving people time to adjust to the change. And as we give more attention to something, we're starting to adapt, we're starting to rewire. And so things start to become habitual. And we just need to give that time. And that's controlled again by the basal ganglia. So lots of science happening as we're going through it in our day to day.
Absolutely. I think the chemical part, like the biochemical part, I think we don't really realize that happens. Like well, at least it's not the first thing you think of, like the anxiety, the adrenaline, the endorphins, even, like, because it can be exciting and they all like just wow, they mix, and then it's just like, well, how do you handle that, right?
Totally.
So some really fascinating stuff here. Go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
And I was going to say, in terms of like, the change when it comes to organizations and with leadership, it's important to remember, that brains are hardwired to reflect emotions. So when we react in this way, sometimes it's a little bit out of our control. And so kind of thinking about what we can do to overcome these as an organization, knowing that this is a part of what is happening to the people that are on the teams that are going through the change.
Absolutely. And I think was the executive leadership part. I think Gretchen talks about this a little bit later, like the sponsorship, like it's all a team effort. We all know we're in this together. It
Yep.
may be bumpy, but let's smooth out those bumps as much as we can. Those types of things too. So, but let's I think we want to deep dive into a little bit more of that Kubler-Ross framework or method in how more detail going through
Yeah.
that process, right?
For sure. I mean, a couple of things we want to think about, right? We want to involve people in the change. We want to set realistic expectation. We want to identify opportunities for co-creation. We want to simplify the messaging, communicate, be open and transparent. We want to make sure that we're giving people time to build these new habits. And so knowing that, right, these are different versions of the change curves. This is a version from William Bridges, and there's a journey for each individual. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. Maybe even the hero's journey in some ways. And we can see here, right, that the denial, the resistance, the acceptance, the exploration, commitment, and growth, this is the phases that everybody goes through. And we want to give time for each of those to take place while acknowledging that business operations need to continue, but just to be aware of these.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, I like that loop-de-loop there. I will say that, especially in resistance, it reminds me of a roller coaster, and you kind of feel like that. It's like what's happening, everything's kind of upside down. I don't know if it's purposely placed in the resistance area, because that feels like it's like your stomach turn. There's a lot of metaphors I'd like to use here, but I think that's truly it speaks again to me quite a bit.
For sure.
So tell us about this little
as a
Android robot too. Like what's the
Yeah,
deal?
yeah. This is the Android bot. This is our personification of some of the concepts we're covering. And as we're thinking about this, we really do want to focus on why the change is happening and remind folks throughout, showing empathy. I'll get into that here in a moment in terms of the bot and the HHM. But we really want to make sure that we're, acknowledging that this is something that's might be challenging for some. We want to remind people what isn't changing. We want to treat past changes with respect and just make sure that we're communicating well and we're keeping in mind the uh, why, the strategic mission and the vision, the H, the head, right? Why should people even care about it? You're building an emotional connection with them. You're talking about like the reasons for it and you're making it personally relevant for them. And then, so you're moving from the feet to the heart to the head. So you have to have all three to be successful. You have the behavioral, the emotional, and the rational. And if you can bring this all together and do it elegantly, you're going to have a successful change.
You mentioned something that like kind of stuck out to me here too, in the sense of previous change, right? Like if people have that, what they've already been through, it's almost like that. I guess you could say instinctual reaction. Like if you put your hand in a bottle of hot water or a pot of hot water, you're instinctively going to pull it out, faster the next time. So it's like studying that. That's just a small bit, but I think that's also something that is very important to recognize. And like just light bulb went off in my head, quite frankly. So
Totally.
yeah.
Just, like with anything that you've gone through, you want to make sure that you have lessons learned, whether it's a previous project, a previous experience. Don't touch the hot stove, right? When you're riding your bike, watch out for the bumps. And so as a part of that, with laying this foundation, really what we're thinking about when we engage with customers and support them on their Google journey is what is that action plan, right? And how might we approach this in a thoughtful way?
100%. Well, that's really, really awesome. And I think this is a great transition to hand the mic over to Gretchen about that transition in an action plan and seeing how Google approaches that too, and how what they've learned in their lessons learned, so to speak, as you mentioned before. But yeah, I'd love to hear from Gretchen for a little bit about how Google approaches that and all of that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I just want to start by saying all the theories and methodologies that you talked about, Tatiana, are so important. And I would encourage any of our listeners who are taking on a large organizational change initiative to evaluate those different theories and understand them, because they really help to prepare you for what you need to know your users might be going through, so that you can come up with that action plan, as you mentioned, to support them through that. And that's really what our methodology is all about, is supporting users through all of that, stress and resistance to change that they may be experiencing, or fear, and really helping guide them through that process, make them feel supported and like they have the information and communication and education that they need to navigate that change. But before I dive into our specific methodology that our team uses for supporting users as they and supporting our customers as they make the move to Google Workspace, I wanted to start by acknowledging that large-scale transformational change can be scary. And it's not just scary in the ways that you talked about for the individual user, but leaders who are having to make these decisions for their organizations, it can sometimes feel very overwhelming or scary, like I said, to take on this type of initiative. And that's with good reason, because according to a recent McKinsey study, 70% of corporate change initiatives fail. And that is a scary number.
That's staggering.
So,
wow.
Yeah, absolutely. And, poorly planned change initiatives don't only run the risk of failing entirely, but they also run the risk of, being behind schedule, being over budget, and they can oftentimes lead to a negative impact to your team's productivity and their job satisfaction. Another data point here on this slide is a Gallup survey that was recently conducted a few years ago, showed that 75% of employees affected by change initiatives reported experiencing moderate to high stress levels, which can ultimately lead to burnout and attrition, which is definitely something that we want to stay away from.
I never would have thought of that, honestly. I mean, that's why I don't do change management, I guess. But I mean, just the thing about the attrition aspect of it, it's just truly fascinating. And these stats that you're throwing, I think, are super valuable for organizations and anybody considering any sort of change. It doesn't have to be workspace, but honestly, any sort of change to look at very, very closely.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's really important to understand, like I was saying earlier, not only the theories and the emotions and things that, all this research has told us users are going to go through, but also these statistics, because we can learn from this. Yeah. This information tells us that it is really important to properly prepare our teams and our organizations for the change. Understanding statistics like this will help us to ensure that we can support our users during that journey. Going back to that McKinsey study, for example, the study actually showed that they could tie the majority of those project failures back to two key factors. The first being employee resistance, which we already talked a little bit about, and then the second being that lack of management support or sponsorship. Yeah. So as we talk about our personal or our organizational methodology when it comes to change with Google Workspace, those are factors that we considered when we came up with that methodology. And as you mentioned earlier, Dan, we do have a component of that focuses specifically on sponsorship, so that we make sure we have that management support, and another component that focuses specifically on understanding the impact to your users, so that we can mitigate that employee resistance.
Yeah, and then mitigate, but also transform, right? We want to be able to get all of this in all one, I guess you could say, bucket, for lack of a better term. But like, what can we do to help transform that positively? Like, and there's multiple ways of doing that. But can you speak to that a little bit too?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the key learnings that we always talk about at Google from doing thousands of workspace implementations, one of our key learnings is that this is not just an IT project. This is not just a technical project. Obviously, technology is part of it.
I love that phrase. Sorry, I love that phrase.
Yeah, no, I say more than I can even count. Not just an IT project. Right. It definitely involves people, and it involves process. And what I mean by that is we've got to bring the employees and the people within the organization along with us on this change journey. And we have to understand their processes. How is this change going to impact them? What are they going to need to understand or potentially do differently in order to, adopt the change? So we really talk about, it's not just about the technology. In order to achieve true transformation, we've really got to focus almost equally, if maybe not a little bit more, on the people and the processes that are going to be impacted by this change.
Definitely.
Yep. it, that I want to go back to that. Well, actually, I went ahead a little bit, but that it seems so simple because you have the three areas that you're bringing together. But once you do, you have that very focused area to like really bring everything together. And as long as everything kind of falls into place when you have the sponsorship, when you have the understanding, when you understand a bit of the culture and all that too. So, but let's why don't we talk about the why and all that right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is kind of that first step in the journey of achieving true transformation. Why are we even making this change, right? We need to all be aligned and understand exactly what value we're hoping to gain from making this change and having this change initiative. The why are we moving to Google Workspace? What are our key business objectives we hope to achieve? What type of transformation are we trying to drive across the organization? How will this change improve the way that we work? And it really needs to be, when we talk with customers, we really want to make sure that we're not just focusing on, a very high level strategic why, which is definitely a component of that, but we also need to make it relevant to everyone. Your employees, as they go through this journey and all those emotions Tatiana was talking about, are going to have a sense of what's in this for me. And being able to not only, show them or illustrate to them how their day-to-day business processes may be improved, or how, using these new modern technologies can create more efficiencies in the ways that they work or make them more productive. That's when you'll really start to get them out of that resistance circle that you were talking about and starting to accept, yes, this journey is maybe going to be difficult in the beginning, but there is a path to something better, and you'll get them ideally following that path along with you for the change. So we definitely encourage our customers to have a really sound case for change as they make their decision to move to Google Workspace, and that case for change is relevant to everyone across the organization and involves people across the organization. And they understand that, we're going to be talking with them and engaging them throughout the entire journey, not just handing them a new product and wishing them good luck.
Sure.
This is always my first priority when I'm engaging with a new customer who's implementing Workspace. Why are we doing this? What is the case for change?
And it goes across any size organization. Like it can be 20 people and it could be 150,000, right? I mean, and we've seen it work, but as long as you're establishing the why, I mean, and every use case is unique. I think the longer I've been doing this too, and I think Tatiana may agree with me here, is that every why maybe is going to be different. I mean, they might have similarities across similar organizations, but the understanding those uniquenesses are why to make it relevant and engage the employees, right?
Yeah. And to build on that, right, you touched on the why, but also like the motivation. So there's like the extrinsic motivation, the external factors that are kind of like, pushing this ahead. But there's the intrinsic motivation, like creating that sense of urgency and excitement so that you have allies and supporters and kind of people at the organization that are helping to move things along or that are getting people excited. And so I know that Google has some ways that, there's some things in place that assist with being able to build motivation in all ways and ensure that everything will move smoothly.
Yeah, absolutely. So here at Google, when we're implementing Google Workspace and when I'm working with customers, these are the 4 change management work streams that we focus on with our customers: sponsorship, organizational analysis, communication, and training. And sponsorship, we've talked a little bit about it, but to expand upon that is, finding leaders, highly visible, highly respected people across the organization at all levels, not just executive sponsorship. We very much encourage our customers to have sponsors at all levels, from executives to business leaders and managers or team leads, all the way down to peers. And we have what we call Google Guides. And those are folks that are intended to be, the folks on the ground, the boots on the ground, if you will. These are people who are excited about this change, who have kind of already resonated with that case for change, and they want to get into the products early. They want to learn how to use them, and then they want to help educate their peers. So when we're talking about sponsorship, we talk about it at 3 distinct levels: executive or C-level sponsorship, business leaders. These are team leaders. These are people who'll be able to represent different departments across your organization. Because Dan, I think you alluded to this earlier. The case for change should really be different for every organization, and may even be different for every team within your organization. And so really having those business leaders engaged, or those team leads or department leads, they can help, kind of develop that individual case for change that they may have within their business unit, and then promote it out across their business unit, and do so by leading by example.
Yeah.
And then, as I mentioned, those Google guides who, that's kind of our, like I said, boots on the ground. This is our army of people who are excited about this change, and they're really ready and excited to support their peers as we, make the move to Workspace.
Totally. And like, it brings up a memory of mine back in 2017 or so. We were working with a company out of Michigan, and they really embraced it. They were using digital signage. They printed up their own boards and stuff, and were really selling balloons everywhere. And they, with the Google guides especially, we say, like, make it your own. Like, one of my, I guess I say this quite often, is just like, we will never understand the culture the way you do. So like, here is like the ideas of what you can do. And what they did was they just ran with it, and they branded it as the G unit. And then they had like a cake and everything. Like, it was like a super
That's awesome.
awesome win. And it was a really wonderful memory from a change perspective. Cool.
Yeah, and that's a really great point. And to jump around a bit, when we talk about our communication work stream, those are the kinds of things that we talk about beyond just sending communication, right? Beyond letting people know that the change is happening. How can we market it? How can we make it exciting? How can we brand it?
Yes.
When we have an exercise we do with customers, and ideally we get their marketing teams involved, like, how can we brand this project? How can we give it its own tagline and its own logo and all of that? And the customers who do that really well not only are more successful with the change, but they have fun along the way. Huge. Which I think it sounds like that customer you're mentioning was doing.
Yeah. People generally don't think of fun when they think of change. They think they're afraid, but if you can make it fun, and like I mentioned earlier, like, we're all in this room together, so to speak, and really embrace that. And there's been quite a bit we've seen customers really understand that. And even from a change communication standpoint, one of our great customers out east in Portland, Maine, they actually did a great communication plan and everything like that. And they ended up hiring somebody to be strictly focused on Google Workspace, and more working with the ongoing change too, because Google grows, right? It's one of the, if not the only platform that iterates upon itself very quickly and efficiently too. So the case for change grew into something even larger and more productive, I guess you could say, for that particular organization. So it was really cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. And I love to hear that customer chose to make the investment in hiring someone. I mean, if you kind of think back to those initial statistics that I started with, there's a lot of risk in not putting time and energy and resources on a change initiative. But when you do it, it's not as overwhelming and difficult. It's just that upfront planning to make sure, are we ready to support our users through this change? And one of the big key factors in that, in our approach to change, is the organizational analysis. So this is really understanding organizationally wide who is going to be impacted by this change and how are they going to be impacted. We can't properly support users through the change journey unless we understand what their journey is going to look like. So we spend a lot of time upfront with customers, after we've made our case for change and secured our sponsors who are going to be out there helping us promote that change. We spend a lot of time doing an organizational analysis. who are all the user groups? What are their business processes today that could be affected? How can we communicate to them and educate them so that that change isn't so disruptive? So we do focus a lot on understanding how the change is going to impact. And then to your point, Dan, that journey does not stop at go live. Where we go with that organizational analysis after, we get through the big change and now everybody's back and operational and, feeling good, then we want to start transforming. And that organizational analysis will really help us build upon that. What did we discover during our organizational analysis that might be opportunities for innovation or improvement in our business processes that workspace tools could help us with? Yeah. So we have an approach called transformation labs. I know your 66 Degrees has conducted many of these with many customers, and it's just a great opportunity to bring people together, identify business processes that seem ripe for innovation, and start thinking of new ways of working now that we have tools that are well integrated and collaborative. How can we create efficiencies in some of our processes? So doing that org analysis upfront in the beginning helps us ease the user through the go live change. And then once we get past that can then be built upon to do true transformation within the organization.
Yeah. And what we do too, and without like divulging too much, but I mean, all partners kind of use the same theories, right? Google has set us up, every partner with a framework to at least follow. But then of course, what we do may be different in some ways, but as far as like that org analysis, right? What I find really cool about this, because you don't change often, or if you're a company that does change often, you're probably scrambling a lot. There's very few companies that, have that change department and then just run with it and can, rinse, repeat kind of a thing. At least in my experience, I'm sure there's plenty out there, but at least in my experience, that's what I've seen. With these org analysis though, you see things outside of this change that you might be like, why are people doing this over here? Or why are they using this application? We didn't even authorize to use this application to be efficient in their work stream. So I just want to say that a little bit deeper in the sense of there's going to be surprise, this is happening because you don't necessarily do that often as an organization for that kind of analysis, especially from an end user perspective. Right. So I'm really excited to see those results, and Tatiana can speak to how we can build these word clouds as far as what is your current state and what are you frustrated with? What are you happy with? And then you can kind of just see this, what are the biggest concerns of your end users, and then dial it down to there, to your point there, Gretchen, as far as personas or their business unit, that type of a thing too. Really,
I was going to say, to build on that in terms of our process, right, as a part of the org analysis, we are discovering a lot of things that are kind of going deeper than just, I remember seeing a Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but the technology hierarchy of needs, and are you in survival? Can you go deeper? Can you kind of start to integrate and innovate? And you're alluding to that, right? That's part of what transformation labs create a space for. And there's this idea of kind of supporting users where we're not just kind of throwing things at them. We're not just, kind of projecting change, but we're also giving them a voice or a way to participate in the conversation. So whether it's, helping to administer a Going Google survey and collecting that information, we'll put together a report, but then also, the organization might use that for some future planning needs to move beyond the novelty effect of engaging with the partner to make sure that you get across the finish line, but laying a strong foundation to continue the momentum so that they can continue to grow and evolve as an organization and leverage all that, Google Workspace has to offer.
100%. And then when we get that org analysis, what's that final stage that we want to do? Once we're all prepared for that and the communication is done, what are we missing? What are we missing?
We're missing training. Yes. Okay. Great segue, Dan. Yeah. So the last piece here, kind of taking a quick step back to the communication piece. Sure. Once we do the organizational analysis, that's really going to feed both of our communication and training strategies. So what outcomes we get from the org analysis will help us define, what do we need to make sure we're communicating out to this user group, and what do we need to make sure that we're educating them on. So yes, to your point, that last key component is all about training. And have we properly prepared and armed our users with the knowledge and information that they need to navigate this new world? So to recap, sponsorship, get people across the entire organization at all levels involved, excited, and behind your case for change. Do your due diligence to understand how this change is going to impact your users. I can't tell you how many times I've had technical teams in these interviews and conversations with users who didn't even realize how many technologies they were having to jump around to do anything, or how many different logins and things like that. So it really opens their eyes to, beyond Workspace, other challenges that they may be wanting to take on and solve. And then, again, communication, making it fun, making it exciting, create a brand, create a marketing strategy that'll really get people, really looking forward to the change. So it helps to mitigate some of that resistance that you might be feeling or facing with your users. And then last, but definitely not least, make sure they are educated and trained on what needs to happen once the change.
What was that word? The R word you said? What was it? What was it called?
The resistance.
Resistance. Okay. How do we deal with resistance then?
Yeah, that's an important piece, right? Because when you are offering training, you're empowering users. But I think it's important to think about a couple of questions. We want to make sure that leaders and managers are modeling the processes and behaviors. They're kind of getting people excited about it and they're embracing it. We want to make sure people, again, understand the why, the reason for it. Why do people care about the change being successful? That kind of internal motivation, along with the organizational kind of momentum. Do people have the knowledge and ability to be successful? That's where training comes into play. And it's not just, hosting, trainings where they're just sitting and receiving information. There's lunch and learns that are more interactive. 66 Degrees has a training platform that we offer. And for those folks, if they decide to level up and kind of internally hire a change management resource, we offer train the training workshops to give those folks the tools to continue the momentum. And then finally, are we recognizing those folks that are really taking that extra effort? Are there recognition programs in place? Is there some sort of gentle enforcement to push folks along to be able to join the organization in this momentum and in this exciting transformation?
And you can't go wrong with giving swag, right? T-shirts, water bottles, pens, whatever. If
Yes,
it's
pizza parties.
pizza parties,
Food,
pizzas,
food or swag.
yes,
right?
Yeah.
or both. That's always a win-win if you could have both. But we love it. We always love a good party or get together, and of course, everybody loves a little bit of a something to take home with them. I was just talking about this with my wife. I have way too many water bottles. I'll just say that, but I keep every single one because I remember I got that from that. I got that from that. But
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
anyway, I digress. But we were talking about our methods too, as far as a Google partner. And what I think, makes us somewhat unique is that we've been doing this for a long time as well. Started off back in 2010. And have gleaned a lot from wonderful folks through our organization, as well as the partnership with Google, making a repeatable process, scaling our delivery. And I really like this last one as far as customized approach, which we kind of talked about with that, the organizational analysis through that. We learn a lot. And I just take a lot of pride in working for this organization and how we can deliver those types of changes through our strategy that we've learned from over the past couple of years, actually more than a decade. Wow, it's been a long time. But I don't know. Yeah, Tatiana, can you tell us what makes our change management department a bit unique from the?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So I was going to say, we essentially, we are very passionate about what we do. Like you said, we've had many, many hundreds, if not thousands of projects that we've worked on, and we collectively are continuously enhancing our process, gathering feedback from customers. We also partner with Google, with folks like Gretchen and her team, when sometimes we'll partner for some of the larger deployments or ask for advice or make sure that we're getting the latest and greatest best practices. We really do enjoy collaborating with customers, but we also find so much value and have so much fun collaborating with Googlers as well, as we're figuring out the best way to support our customers as they join us in the Google Workspace ecosystem. It really is about kind of, taking that extra time to get to know the organization, to partner with them, and to not only, again, hold their hands or support them and lift them up, but also to make sure that they have the tools that they need as they go on their journey. And that they know that when they need additional support, maybe they're acquiring another company, or maybe they want to do some more training or kind of go in a different direction, that they're able to reach out to us as their partner, along with Google, to be able to continue to enhance their organization's workflows, their ability to leverage the technology and empower their employees to do the best they can do and be the best they can be.
Absolutely. And we're going to segue into a couple of customer stories here too, which I'm really excited to talk about. But I do want to mention, like, it's Google's mission now is to be, 100% partner aligned with all their clients and customers. So, I mean, we'd love to talk to you first, but if you don't have, we're all supportive of each other here too, in regards to basically looking at what we can do for you. So if you're not wanting to just talk to us, but we would like to talk to you first, but just want to put that out there. Change is so important. Please get involved with that. I will just transition to talk about WEX here for a second, which is that customer I mentioned back in Portland. I didn't remember that we were actually talking about them, so I could say their name. So that customer I was referencing before is WEX. They're in the financial card payment services. They're located all over the world, and we're able to help them out. They started their journey in 2017, and looking at the change, right? They understood the why for the case for change, as well as organizational sponsorship. Really wonderful team. I was actually able to go over to the UK in Crew to help with their training, enablement, and all of that. And they did a wonderful job too. Again, located all over the world. So we actually did a more phased rollout for them, and was able to really bring them across the finish line. We're still working with them today. We love them, and really the big change for them was obviously they were on Microsoft and they moved over to Google Workspace. Was really involved with the team, and on all aspects. We were with corporate technology. We were in change communications. We were with C-levels. We were with end users, boots on the ground even. We were, this was a time when we were able to, really get involved and travel quite a bit to be there for everybody in that case for change. So it was a really successful change and an ongoing, I think, relationship, both with Google, us, and WEX. We do have another one with FC Tucker, who is a very large. I'm not even going to say anything. Go ahead, Tatiana. You go ahead and take this over.
Oh, FC Tucker is another great example of a change management success story. So FC Tucker is, I think, the largest real estate agency in Indiana. They've got over 1,500 agents across 56 offices and 18 franchises. So they are distributed all over. And so they essentially looked to partner with us as they're exploring Google Workspace as a solution to help centralize communication for all of these different agents and franchises. They were really excited about the 99% email system uptime. They were able to streamline onboarding processes. They were able to use Google Forms to collect information. They, worked with us to help transform their business and ensure that they are using the best tools that they can to help promote collaboration across all their different or sub-organizations. They're able to leverage Google Drive to store all of the media that they need as a part of their operations. And they continue to work with us because after we have completed a project with a partner, we also do offer other services and extra TLC that's available if you work with us.
Yeah. I was on that project too. I don't like to talk about myself in these things, but I just been here for, I feel like, ages. So I tend to put my 2 cents in. But what was really cool about FC Tucker was that they're not only are their locations, they're like brick and mortar real estate facilities located around the Indianapolis metro area, But from a, I guess you could say, broker perspective, all of them had their own emails. And as like, I learned so much about the real estate industry through this, because it's like their own business, and they like, it's kind of ingrained, like you are your own business and you have a representation from that realtor, right? So the best thing that I saw was the care from the lead. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say his name, but he's an amazing person over there at FC Tucker. I know if you watch this ever, you know what I'm talking about. But he was really understood the why of that what Gretchen was talking about before. And everybody had their own email addresses, and it was just really kind of hard to manage, even though they weren't really they were their own business. They were still under the brand of FC Tucker. Being able to manage all those users and help them and engage and be collaborative around, you know, not necessarily their own their deals, but more or less of as a company, right? So really fascinating stuff. Both of these actual case studies are online, both on Google as well as 66degrees.com. But that said, this has been awesome. I really enjoyed talking to you both today. Thank you for letting me crash the party in a sense of regarding change management and my anecdotes here. But, as we wrap up, any parting thoughts?
If there was one takeaway that we might offer to customers, what might that be?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll circle back to one of the first things I talked about, which was making the strong, sound case for change. I often encourage customers and our field teams that if we can't define why we're doing what we're doing, it's going to be really difficult for us to encourage the rest of the organization to get on board. So if there's any takeaway that the audience has from today, I would say it's putting the time in up front and making sure that everyone understands why we're making this change and what value we hope to gain from the change, both at the organizational level and the individual level. So again, that component of making it relevant to everyone across the organization. So great question. Have a sound and ideally measurable, if you can, with data, case for change, and then make sure that everybody is communicated that case for change, informed about it, and educated on it, so that they can prepare for the change that's coming.
Awesome.
Love it.
Wow. Thank you, Gretchen, Tatiana, again for joining us today. That was awesome feedback and great conversation. Thanks again for joining us today. My name is Dan Wagner at 66 Degrees. If you have any interest or questions about who we are and what we do, please go to 66degrees.com. That's 66degrees.com to find out more about what we do. But Gretchen, Tatiana, thank you so much. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye.